Welcome to CARB's tester training for California's Clean Truck Check program. This module will cover the general requirements of the Clean Truck Check program. The regulatory information presented in this module is not all-inclusive. Additional information can be found on the Clean Truck Check web pages.
Your objectives for this module are to learn general information about the Clean Truck Check program. This information includes: what is the Clean Truck Check program and why is it needed? What entities and vehicles are subject to this program? And what are the requirements and responsibilities for each entity? These entities include vehicle owners and drivers, Clean Truck Check testers, which will be you once you complete this full training course and successfully pass the exam, freight contractors, brokers, and freight facilities, as well as vendors of OBD testing devices certified for use in performing Clean Truck Check emissions compliance testing.
Clean Truck Check started in January of 2023. It requires almost all diesel and alternative fuel vehicles with a gross vehicle weight rating of more than 14,000 pounds to pay an annual compliance fee and submit passing emissions compliance tests to legally operate on California's roads and highways. This includes applicable vehicles registered outside of California and outside of the United States. Clean Truck Check is similar to California's Smog Check program, administered by California's Bureau of Automotive Repair for light-duty passenger vehicles and gasoline heavy-duty vehicles. Clean Truck Check's emission system inspections and testing ensure that a vehicle's emissions control systems are maintained and functioning. To minimize excess emissions, vehicles with emissions control malfunctions are required to be repaired and submit a passing emissions compliance test by a specified deadline.
Why do we need a Clean Truck Check program? Because heavy-duty diesel vehicles represent over half of the harmful emissions from mobile sources in California. In fact, in 2020, heavy-duty diesel vehicles were responsible for over half of the statewide on-road mobile source emissions of oxides of nitrogen, referred to as NOx, and particulate matter, referred to as PM. Heavy-duty vehicles with malfunctioning emissions control components can emit substantially higher emissions than properly functioning vehicles. For example, recent test data show that vehicles with damaged diesel particulate filters, called DPFs, can emit PM at levels more than 50 times that of a vehicle with a properly functioning DPF. As we'll discuss later, diesel PM is toxic and harmful to health. To meet near-term federal health-based air quality standards and reduce health risks for individuals throughout the state, we must act now to reduce emissions from all sources, particularly heavy-duty trucks. Even with all the progress California has made in improving air quality, it still has the worst air quality in the nation, which is responsible for thousands of premature deaths each year. The yellow areas on the map are regions in California that exceed the federal 8-hour ozone standard. NOx is a precursor to ozone. Regions with orange stripes exceed federal fine particulate matter standards. People living, working, and visiting these regions are exposed to unhealthy emissions levels on a regular basis that can cause harmful health effects.
As we've mentioned before, NOx is one of the harmful pollutants given off during the operation of heavy-duty combustion vehicles. NOx is a group of highly reactive gases formed during engine combustion at high temperatures and is a critical ingredient in the formation of ground-level ozone. Once formed, ground-level ozone can lead to many health-related ailments, including respiratory issues such as decreased lung function, increased asthma attacks and allergen responses, and increased hospital and emergency room visits. NOx is also a precursor to secondary particulate matter 2.5 formation and increases the risk for serious health conditions, as we'll present next.
Another harmful pollutant released during heavy-duty vehicle operation is diesel particulate matter, or PM. Diesel PM is made up of soot particles from the incomplete combustion of fuel during engine operations. Diesel PM includes a mixture of organic chemicals and metals. A major component of diesel PM includes smaller particles, which we refer to as PM 2.5. PM 2.5 consists of fine particles with diameters of 2.5 micrometers and smaller, about 1/70th the diameter of a human hair. These tiny particles can move deep into the lungs during breathing and are responsible for serious and sometimes deadly health effects. Exposure to diesel PM 2.5 can cause an increased risk of cancer, chronic heart disease, asthma, decreased lung function, increased hospitalizations, and premature death. Children, the elderly, and people suffering from chronic illnesses are the most vulnerable to the effects of PM 2.5 exposure. Exposure studies indicate that about 70% of the cancer risk from airborne toxic contaminants in California is attributable to diesel exhaust. The large health risks associated with NOx and PM requires actions to reduce these pollutant levels during heavy-duty vehicle operation.
With that background on the need for the Clean Truck Check program, we'll now move on to the regulated entities subject to the requirements of the Clean Truck Check program. As you can see here, the regulated entities include owners and drivers of almost all non-gasoline vehicles with a gross vehicle weight rating over 14,000 pounds that travel in California, testers that perform clean truck emissions compliance testing on vehicles subject to the program. As a credentialed Clean Truck Check tester, you have a responsibility to accurately perform these tests using specific testing tools and submitting data to CARB in prescribed formats. The modules in this training course are designed to inform you of your responsibilities as a credentialed Clean Truck Check tester, how to conduct emissions compliance tests, and how to submit test data to CARB. Freight contractors and brokers that do business in California using vehicles and fleets that are subject to the Clean Truck Check program. Ports and rail yards in California that allow heavy-duty vehicles onto their properties. And finally, vendors of certified OBD testing devices that produce and sell the tools used to perform compliance testing using onboard diagnostics data downloaded from a vehicle's engine. Moving forward in this training module, we'll now provide further details on the roles and responsibilities of vehicle owners and credentialed testers.
First, we'll start with vehicle applicability. Vehicles subject to Clean Truck Check include any diesel, alternative fuel, or diesel hybrid or alternative fuel hybrid which operates in California and has a gross vehicle weight rating greater than 14,000 pounds. This includes California registered vehicles, vehicles registered in other states or countries, and vehicles owned by the federal government not registered in any state or local jurisdiction.
There are some categories of heavy-duty vehicles that are excluded from Clean Truck Check. This includes zero-emission heavy-duty vehicles, authorized emergency vehicles as defined in California Vehicle Code, tactical military vehicles, motorhomes registered outside of California used for recreational purposes, new vehicles with engines certified to the most stringent optional low NOx standard during the first 4 years of the Clean Truck Check program, vehicles issued a permanent historical vehicle license plate, vehicles operating under a CARB-issued experimental permit, and out-of-state vehicles operating under a governor's emergency declaration.
In this next section, we will now go over the basic requirements for vehicle owners and drivers, including how these requirements are phased in over the lifetime of Clean Truck Check. In this training module, we will refer to the start date of these responsibilities as implementation phases. We'll also provide an overview of other vehicle owner responsibilities, which include reporting vehicle and owner information to CARB and paying a per-vehicle compliance fee, and complying with the periodic testing requirements by specific deadlines and understanding the different compliance test methods. And finally, will summarize driver responsibilities during a roadside enforcement inspection.
Vehicle owners must ensure all their applicable vehicles operating in California comply if they are subject to Clean Truck Check's requirements. When the program first began in January 2023, roadside emissions monitoring devices, or REMD, were deployed throughout California to monitor vehicles' emissions while driving. Vehicles that are detected as possible high emitters may receive a notice to submit to testing, and the vehicle will be required to submit a passing emissions compliance test within 30 days. Phase 2 requirements, with the initial deadline in January 2024, required vehicle owners to report their vehicles to CARB and pay an annual compliance fee for each vehicle. The third and final phase, beginning in October 2024, launched the periodic emissions compliance testing requirements for all vehicles operating in California. A vehicle is considered compliant with Clean Truck Check if it has been reported, has no outstanding enforcement actions, and is current with both compliance fees and passing emissions compliance test submissions.
What is a remote emissions monitoring device, or REMD? These devices measure NOx and PM exhaust emissions as vehicles pass by the units. Automated license plate readers link the emissions readings to the vehicle as it passes through the unit. REMD is used to identify potentially high-emitting vehicles for a follow-up emissions compliance test. REMD is a screening tool. It is not a Clean Truck Check compliance test. The owner of a vehicle flagged as a potential high emitter through REMD will receive a notification letter from CARB called a Notice to Submit to Testing, or NST. The NST requires verification that a vehicle is Clean Truck Check compliant by submitting a passing emissions compliance test within 30 days. As a credentialed Clean Truck Check tester, you may be responsible for performing emissions compliance tests and submitting the results to CARB in response to NSTs.
Vehicles that fail a Clean Truck Check compliance test will need to repair any malfunctioning emissions-related control components and be retested to demonstrate Clean Truck Check compliance. If a vehicle owner fails to submit a passing compliance test to CARB within 30 days, CARB may issue the owner a citation and will deem the vehicle non-compliant until the owner takes action to bring it back into compliance by getting the vehicle repaired, if necessary, and submitting a passing compliance test. Vehicle compliance test requirements will be highlighted later in this module. Specific test procedures and submission processes will be discussed in subsequent modules within this tester training series.
Owners of vehicles that are subject to Clean Truck Check are required to create their own accounts at cleantruckcheck.arb.ca.gov. Within the account, they must report owner and vehicle information, pay annual compliance fees, and ensure that passing emissions compliance tests are submitted by the deadlines shown in their account.
All emissions compliance testing must be performed and test results submitted to CARB by a credentialed Clean Truck Check tester. The only exception to this requirement is for test results that are submitted through a telematics service provider using a CARB-certified OBD test device that automatically submits test data to CARB. Anyone can become a credentialed Clean Truck Check tester, including people outside of California. Credentialed testers may be vehicle owners that want to do their own compliance testing, employees of fleets that only test their fleet's vehicles, or for-hire testers. Your name and contact information can be included on the Credentialed Testers for Hire list after you pass the training course and credential exam.
Individuals that successfully complete this Clean Truck Check tester training course and pass the exam may become a Clean Truck Check credentialed tester and perform Clean Truck Check emissions compliance tests. After passing the Clean Truck Tester exam, you will be issued a certificate of completion and a unique tester ID number. You will use the tester ID number every time you perform a Clean Truck Check emissions test and submit test results to CARB. The very last module in this training course will include instructions for accessing and taking the exam and obtaining your certificate of completion and unique tester ID number. Your Clean Truck Tester credential is valid for 2 years from the date you complete the training and pass the exam. To continue as a Clean Truck Check tester, you will need to pass the exam again before your credential expires. If you don't retake the exam before your credential expires, you will be unable to submit Clean Truck Check emissions compliance tests until you pass the exam again and reinstate your credentials.
Clean Truck Check allows CARB to hold all entities associated with the vehicle undergoing Clean Truck Check compliance testing accountable for ensuring that the tests are properly performed and the data submitted to CARB is accurate. This means that the Clean Truck Check testers themselves, companies or entities that employ their own Clean Truck Check testers for in-house compliance testing, and vehicle owners all have a stake in the compliance testing process. Testers should always check within a few minutes of the test completion that the test results were added to their CTC Viz tester accounts. The results are linked to vehicles through CARB's reporting system, CTC Viz, and not the testing devices themselves. This will ensure that the correct test results were submitted and received in the account and applied to the appropriate VIN and avoids the potential for having to retest the vehicle unnecessarily. Through Clean Truck Check enforcement provisions, CARB may revoke the Clean Truck Check tester credential of any tester found to be in violation of any requirement in Clean Truck Check, such as improperly performing emissions compliance testing, purposefully submitting inaccurate data, or using OBD testing equipment not certified by CARB. CARB can also prohibit Clean Truck Check testers from submitting test results based on violations. Additional enforcement penalties can also be assessed depending on the severity of the violations and may extend to the vehicle owner and the company or entity that employs the Clean Truck Check tester.
Almost all vehicles will be required to test 2 times per year at 6-month intervals. For California registered motorhomes and for agricultural vehicles as defined in the Heavy Duty Vehicle Inspection and Maintenance Regulation, Clean Truck Check includes an exception to the semi-annual testing frequency. These vehicles are required to test once per year rather than 2 times per year. For vehicles that require OBD type tests, compliance testing will increase to 4 times per year in October 2027. There is no change in testing frequency for non-OBD vehicles in California registered motorhomes and agricultural vehicles.
Vehicle owners are responsible for ensuring test data demonstrating a vehicle has passed its emissions compliance test is submitted to CARB by the compliance deadline shown in their CTC Viz account. Passing tests may be submitted by the tester up to 90 days prior to the vehicle's compliance deadline to allow time for any necessary repairs. Vehicle owners should always refer to the compliance due dates in their CTC Viz account to ensure they remain in compliance.
We'll now provide an overview of the Clean Truck Check compliance test methods. The test method depends on the model year of a vehicle's engine, the fuel type, and if the vehicle is equipped with a proper OBD system. For OBD-equipped vehicles, the test method consists of submitting required OBD data to CARB's Clean Truck Check database. We'll highlight options for performing that testing shortly. OBD-equipped diesel vehicles have 2013 and newer model year engines or hybrid systems. OBD-equipped alternative fuel vehicles have 2018 and newer model year engines or hybrid systems. Non-OBD diesel vehicles with pre-2013 model year engines are subject to the SAE J1667 smoke/opacity test and a vehicle emissions control equipment inspection, referred to as a visual inspection. Non-OBD alternative fuel vehicles with pre-2018 model year engines are only subject to a visual inspection. All tests must be submitted to cleantruckcheck.arb.ca.gov through either your certified OBD testing device or directly to your CTC Viz tester account for non-OBD tests. Testers should always verify test submissions and results through their CTC Viz account and not the OBD device portal. These test methods are described in more detail in subsequent training modules.
Emissions compliance testing for OBD-equipped vehicles must be performed using a testing device that meets specifications set by CARB, including submission format requirements. OBD testing devices include equipment such as a dongle supplied by a telematics service provider or a handheld scan tool with software that connects to the vehicle's OBD port under the driver's side dashboard. Using an OBD testing device, CARB-regulated OBD parameters that validate operation of a vehicle's emission system are collected and submitted to the Clean Truck Check reporting database known as CTC-Viz. A passing emissions compliance test indicates there are no emissions-related component issues. The OBD module of this tester training series provides more detail on the OBD compliance test method and available testing options.
In case questions arise during the inspection process, we will now present a brief overview of requirements for OBD device vendors to ensure you have basic knowledge of their responsibilities under Clean Truck Check.
OBD device vendors actively work with CARB to test and verify that their devices meet CARB's technical specifications and OBD data formatting and submission requirements before they are eligible for sale and use in Clean Truck Check compliance testing. Only OBD devices that have successfully demonstrated they can meet CARB's requirements can be used during vehicle compliance testing. Devices that do not meet CARB's requirements are ineligible to be used for Clean Truck Check compliance testing and will result in a failed OBD compliance test. This means that each testing device used by a credentialed Clean Truck Check tester has been vetted through CARB to meet our requirements and will not harm the vehicle being tested. To find a list of certified OBD testing devices and device vendor information, please access CARB's main Clean Truck Check webpage and click on Credentialed Testers and Testing Devices. Then, click on OBD Test Devices. As more vendors complete the certification process, the list will be updated to let the public know which OBD testing devices meet CARB's requirements.
For non-OBD vehicles, SAE J1667 compliant smoke meters are used to perform emissions compliance testing. Non-OBD vehicles must also undergo a vehicle emissions control equipment inspection or visual inspection. This inspection consists of a visual inspection of all required emissions control components on the vehicle to ensure they are in their proper configuration and have not been tampered with. Note that only diesel, non-OBD vehicles are required to undergo the smoke opacity test. Non-OBD alternative fuel vehicles are exempt from the opacity test and are only required to undergo the visual inspection. The smoke opacity test and the visual inspection are presented in detail in subsequent training modules.
The allowable smoke opacity levels for on-road engines range from 5% for engines with DPFs to 40% for old pre-1991 model year engines. The new opacity limits include a 5% threshold for off-road engines with diesel particulate filters and also delineate opacity limits based on engine tier and exhaust emission control technology, ranging from 10% to 40%.
All testers must have an active tester account at cleantruckcheck.arb.ca.gov. The email address used to create the account must match the one used to pass the tester exam, as well as your certified OBD testing device login email. If these do not match, your test submissions will be marked invalid tester. CARB has provided step-by-step instructions at this video link.
As a credentialed Clean Truck Check tester, it is your responsibility to perform all emissions compliance tests as specified in the Heavy Duty Vehicle Inspection and Maintenance Regulation, and as described in this course. Failure to follow the test procedures and Clean Truck Check requirements may incur a revocation of your Clean Truck Check tester credential. OBD emissions compliance test submissions will automatically upload to CTC-Viz when properly performed using a CARB-certified OBD testing device. The OBD testing training module provides details on this process. Non-OBD compliance test submissions must be submitted to CTC-Viz through your tester account using the process described in the smoke opacity testing and vehicle emissions control equipment inspection training modules.
We have reached the end of the Basic Regulatory Requirements module. We hope you now know more about Clean Truck Check and why it's needed in California, what entities are subject to Clean Truck Check, and the basic requirements for each of these entities. You are now ready to move on to the next training module.